Now, we are pleased now to be joined by Bernard Kerik, a former New York City police commissioner, someone who worked very closely with Rudy Giuliani. He's also the former interim minister for the interior of Iraq and is also a senior policy advisor to the U.S. President George W. Bush as the Iraq War first began. Bernard, it's great to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we heard Mayor Giuliani say something that a lot of folks have talked about, but really has not been the main focus of a lot of the discussion that comes up when you're talking about race in the police force, and that is black-on-black violence. What was your response when you heard Rudy Giuliani going back and forth with Dyson about this issue?
You know what, John? It is what it is. I mean, you can't erase those statistics. We saw it in New York. We see it around the country. I think the political correctness in the world today, or in the U.S., it pushes people not to talk about it, pushes people not to admit it, not to agree with it. You know, they want to focus on something else. And I noticed something when you started out your presentation earlier. The activists are going to, you know, respond. They're going to do what they're doing. Whether this guy is indicted or not, you have to wonder what people's real motives are behind these protests.
And what do you think their real motives are then? We've heard somebody like Al Sharpton say that he's going to be there no matter what the grand jury decides. Most folks, at least from what I've seen, say it's going to be a no bill or no charges against Officer Wilson. That might be what Sharpton wants, but what do you think their real motives are aside from what's taking place in Ferguson?
Well, look, Al Sharpton is an opportunist. You know, he takes advantage of situations like this. He gets involved in situations like this. The bottom line is we live by a set of laws, the Constitution, that we're supposed to follow. You know, I find it amazing. I had to debate Jesse Jackson one time, and he basically came out and said this guy should be put in prison. This cop should be put in prison, basically, arrested, charged, put in prison before the investigation, before the grand jury, before anything. This is a guy that wanted to be the president of the United States. You know what? We have a set of laws to follow. Follow the law. Let due course take its process, go through the process, and let's find out what the real evidence is. Nobody knows. All these people talking, nobody knows what the evidence is, with the exception of the people that's sitting in that grand jury and the prosecutor.
And let's talk about that a little bit too, Bernie, because that was another point that Mayor Giuliani made yesterday, a former federal prosecutor. These grand jury deliberations are supposed to be highly secretive. Of course, there's been leaks out to the media, and we've seen folks like Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson kind of apply pressure through the media on the grand jury. What do you think? This is taking on a life of its own. How disappointing is that for you as someone who's very familiar with law enforcement?
Well, it's disappointing on a number of fronts. One, first of which, is the leaks out of the grand jury. The only people that know what's going on in there are the prosecutors. So that stuff should not be leaked out to the public, number one. Number two, Al Sharpton and all these people out there protesting and making these public statements and threatening, you know, some kind of civil disobedience. You know what? That is influencing, could influence the process, could influence the grand jury process. And it's wrong. It's just wrong. The evidence is what it is. Let the people in the grand jury see the evidence, analyze the evidence, evaluate the evidence, and make a decision. That's what's supposed to happen. But today in this country, that's not what happens.
It certainly doesn't appear.
And the leaks are outrageous.
Those leaks are outrageous and concerning. We'll see what happens. We're keeping one eye on Ferguson. We also want to talk to you, Bernard, a little bit about what's taking place in Iraq right now. We're about to step aside for a short commercial break, but Bernard Kerik, former New York City Police Commissioner, also former U.S. envoy to Iraq, will be back with us right after this short commercial break. John Bachman in for JD today. Stick around, please.